Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this very, very interesting session. This is the penultimate session of the first day of Packimpression. We have an exciting panel here. I mean, it's a really heavy power-packed panel. And let me take the honor of introducing the panel. The panel is going to be moderated by Dr. TKS Lakshmi Priya, who's a professor with over 20 years of teaching and research experience in technologies across various sectors and specializing in printing technology and solutions. She's going to be aided by a panel consisting of Lloyd Matthias, a well-known person who has been a board advisor and business strategist, and he has held several leading jobs in the market, starting with HP's consumer marketing VP for Asia Pacific. He was with Pepsi. He is joined also by Mr. Sangam Khanna, who is the current Deputy Managing Director of Komori India. Then we have Ms. Lilak Sapir, who has been my colleague, has been, for many years. She was, when we were together in HP Cytex. After leaving Cytex, she has worked with leading digital printing companies like Massavit, Lambda Digital. She runs her own marketing consulting firm right now based out of Israel. And then we have Mr. Tarun Chopra, who is a color management training consultant, both for ISO and G7 processes, and he's a print enthusiast, and he's managing a commercial printing facility. With these few words, I have the privilege and honor of introducing the entire panel. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and looking forward to an interesting session as I hand it over to Professor Lakshmi Priya to take this over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pankaj Goswami. Good evening, everybody. I would like to share my screen. Let me put my presentation on. So, good evening, everybody. We are on the packaging and printing industry in the post-COVID world panel. We are going to see what can help the industry thrive in the new normal, what new operating models will become necessary. We have the four panelists as they were just introduced. For the benefit of the audience who are from different industries, I would like to give a brief introduction to the print and pack industry. Printing has come a long way from letterpress. So print is no more ink on paper. Printing is digital, that is the online version of it or the soft copy e-publishing version of it. So what you see on the e-commerce websites are all the designing and pre-press areas of printing. And whatever you see, whatever industry you talk about, there is print in it, either for communicating color, information, technically, or even instructions. So print is prevalent. Today with the industry 4.0 era, the print 4.0 version of the print industry, technologies including printed electronics, 3D printing, and augmented reality have become a reality in the print industry as well. These are some of the work that my students have done as projects. So it has entered even into the academia, where students do small projects on those areas. Artificial intelligence, IoT are also part of the printing industry. Coming to the packaging industry, innovation, challenges in packing different kinds of products for not only its production, but also for brand value, appeal, making it eco-friendly, tamper-resistant, and several such functionalities are incorporated into packing. We see each of these every day that we don't pay attention to print and pack as an industry. And even today, many people are unaware that print and pack is a huge industry. Packaging, as per the global standards, statistics, we find that today people are looking at reusable transport packaging. How packaging waste is generated, how that can be minimized. How biodegradable polymers can be used for packaging. So that is the level to which package industry has gone, starting from just merely protecting a product. So now recently that COVID has come, what happens to the print and packaging industry? There is a lot of uncertainty in this industry as well. The work pattern has changed, or has it changed? Lifestyle has an uncertainty in this industry. People's behavior, what is the priority of life, and several other such questions. From the industry perspective, what has happened to the various elements of the supply chain, production cycle, business process, and so on? To my understanding, the MSMEs are the most affected. Do they have a scope? Can they come up again? Are there opportunities during COVID? Yeah, there are several rays of hope for them as well. There are several essential printing and packaging tasks that are going on very effectively. In this panel discussion, we are going to see what can help the industry thrive in a new normal. Can people take up new businesses or jobs or product? In my own experiences, I have seen printers shifting to new businesses because the existing business is not profitable. Can they go in for collaboration with local or global players? Or should they go into digital printing? Would that give them a better business? Should they learn new skills and start afresh? Or go online to promote their brand? Several questions exist in my mind. Looking at new operating models, should they adopt the new technology? Most printers are unaware of the technology 4.0. They only know to print, but when it comes to advanced technology, SAP, ERP, the MSMEs are not into this area. Should they work from home? Can they work from home? Should they adopt e-commerce? Should they be certified so that they can connect or collaborate with foreign jobs? Should they go green? What should they do? How can we look at it? We have a panel of eminent people who can talk on it, starting with Mr. Tarun Chopra, who is a color management specialist and founder of Color Dots Pre-Press Studio. He is basically a commercial printer. So, Mr. Tarun, can you give your views on how commercial printers can look at the future during COVID?
Well, the entire industries, all the industries across the globe are suffering. Print is not an exception. The only thing that needs to be done now is to kind of adapt to the new normal. For that, there could be a few changes that there will have to be a few changes that the industry insiders will have to do. All the printers will have to adopt and figure out new methods of reaching out to the new market, because the entire dynamics is going to change now. So printers who were only dependent on offset as a technology will now, they should be actually looking at digital as an option. Because without that, I really don't think they'll be able to pull it off in the long run. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Another question I would like to continue. If they have to take up digital as an option, do you think they will be able to invest? Is it the right thing to invest during this time?
Well, that's a tough question because I really don't have a concrete answer to that. But if they have to be in the business, they will have to do something which is radical.
Being a color specialist, what is your view about going in for standardization, color standardization? What is it the need of the hour?
Definitely, because of the new normal coming into play, the industry will be operating with digital and offset at a parallel level. So a printer will not only be doing a digital print, he will also be producing commercial offset prints. And it is not possible for him to give two different variations of the same job, because there could be a situation that part of the job has to be printed on a digital press. So standardization and color reproduction, they become a very, very crucial component of the business in the future. Because, and I personally think that standardization of any process or any manufacturing process it's mandatory. I mean, we've been late as an industry to adopt it as a technology, but it is as important to buy a press. It is equally important you should have a color management or a standardization protocol in place so that you don't waste your resources which are there, because you will have to be very, you will have to have an error-free process in place to take it forward.
Being a commercial printer, yes.
I'd like to value add here what Tarun is saying. See, it is an old Darwin theory, survival of the fittest. Okay? So, change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. We must learn to grace the change, applaud the change, and stay with the change. Rather than cribbing about it, it's time to transform. If you don't change yourself, the time will change you. So we must bite the bullet by understanding that the Darwin's theory is there to stay. Thank you.
And we have to adopt. I mean, the market is changing. The digitization is taking over almost everything. So there is nothing which is out of the purview of digitization. Eventually, artificial intelligence, all those things will happen. You need to figure out how you can sustain your businesses.
Absolutely correct. Tarun, what you said, necessity is the mother of invention. And I have seen more inventions happening during COVID than in the last 5 or 7 years. Most printers are looking at new verticals. Most suppliers are looking at, even the print suppliers are looking for newer ways of entering and serving the printers. The pre-press people are looking at new, even the consumer industry is looking at various options. So necessity is the mother of invention, so it's there to stay.
Tarunji, being a commercial printer, I have another question for you. We hear that calendars, diaries are all going to go online, soft copy. So do you think that this would affect the commercial printers?
Again, it comes to adaptation, ma'am, because you can't stop change. I mean, technology will have its impact. So all the printers will have to kind of figure out how they can add value to the current market space. It could be, I mean, calendars have gone out from the government space, but they still do exist in the commercial space. People will value, and somehow I have a very strong feeling that print will bounce back with a zest which has not been experienced in the early years, because a major chunk of the population now feels the online fatigue. It is actually more tiring sitting in front of a computer rather than being on field.
Thank you. Now that you have spoken about the customer point of view, Mr. Lloyd, we would like to hear from you. What is your perspective of the customer behavior? What do you think that they are expecting from the printers and packages?
Thanks, Professor. I think, there are two aspects, and I think Tarun summarized it pretty good. I think the first part is to really look at business continuity as a basic starting point, right? For a lot of businesses and for consumers, life as they knew it has kind of, turned upside down, right? Who would have expected, maybe 8 months ago that most of us would have spent virtually the last few months working out of home and doing things dramatically differently from what we are used to, right? So I think there's been a radical change, and businesses across the board, not just printing and packaging, have had to adapt themselves to the new normal, right? And one of the perspectives I want to bring is that one of the ways that successful businesses are managed is by being resilient. The fact that, how nimble you are in terms of reworking your business plan. Just to give an example, a lot of consumer goods companies typically, they depend on the traditional distribution model, right? From factory to CNF agent to distributor to retailer, right? A lot of that in the first phase of the lockdown kind of went for a 6. A lot of them had to quickly rework their plans, work on online models, right? The ones that were better prepared, that were able to do this quickly, were able to adapt and serve consumers better, right? So I think one part is that the pandemic has brought in front of us is the resilience and the ability to quickly pivot and change our business model. So I think that is critical, and that's something clearly the printing and packaging industry has to keep in mind. As far as the consumer responsiveness goes, I have this simple 4-point theory that a lot of sales have gone through these 4 parts. For a lot of consumers, there's a deferred purchase, right? A lot of us who had planned our summer vacations, hopefully going to Europe or going somewhere. This year, obviously, travel's gone for a toss, right? So that would, you can say, pretty much not just a deferred purchase, but something that will disappear. The other aspect is a lot of, what you'd call sales that have kind of been destroyed, right? If you plan to watch movies in a cinema theater, if you plan to go out to a fine dining restaurant, over the last 4 months, that was a no option. That's pretty much destroyed. A lot of consumers are doing what you'd call down trading, right? Given the fact there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of job loss, a lot of impact on the economy, a lot of consumers are reevaluating their need basis and their purchases, right? So people are down trading. If I were to, let's say, peg myself saying, hey, I want to get myself a fancy car, I either push it back or I'll say, maybe I don't need that, and maybe I could make do with a slightly more functional model. So it's kind of making people reevaluate their perspectives. And I think this is the kind of opportunities that businesses have to look at, saying, hey, the business as we knew it is not the same, and therefore we'll need to rework some part of it, right? There are businesses, to be fair, that have also kind of prospered in the course of the pandemic. Online learning has become real. At one time, online learning and massive online courses were something that people in the work stream did. Today, junior school kids are doing online learning. That's seen a big jump. The concept of remote medicine or remote diagnostics, right? Today, you think twice about walking across to your general practitioner. You'd rather call him and do a small video consultation. That's seen a big boost. We're seeing it in impact in terms of, a lot of the online startups are, becoming unicorns overnight, right? The Byju's and the Unacademy. So clearly there are certain businesses. But I think for a lot of businesses, the real challenge is being able to adapt one's business model to the new reality. The second is to be resilient and to actually proactively reach out, not just to your employees and your customers, but also to your vendors and your partners. And the third is to look at the opportunity that this new normal is providing, right? How do I do things differently? And how do I things that make my business more relevant to the consumer? I think these 3 watch points will, kind of give a lot of, will actually be, will separate the men from the boys in a manner of speaking. So I think that's the direction I'd like to look at, Professor.
Thank you. Do you think consumers are sustainability conscious? Are they looking for eco-friendly options, waste management kind of things?
Absolutely. I think the trend is growing. I've seen a few studies of different consumer psychographics. It's the younger lot, right? The people they talk are the Gen Z, kids born in the late 90s. And, the psychographic just before them is what is called millennials. I think young consumers are becoming a lot more socially aware and a lot more socially conscious about their choices. All right. One aspect is the fact that this is the internet generation, right? So they're always exposed to points of view, friends, from colleagues, and from people across the world. So a lot of younger consumers are becoming very rational about their choices. They're beginning to examine their choices in the light, is the company that I'm going to give my business to, is it worthy of my business? Is it socially conscious? Are they doing the right things? Are they eco-friendly? Are they environmentally conscious? Are they working to save the better world? And I think these are realities that we've all encountered. In my last role at HP, we did a deep consumer analysis to understand people's response to printing. And we found that the biggest hurdle for the growth of the printing business actually came from school-going kids who were very conscious that every time you printed something, you're talking about its impact to the environment, you're cutting down a tree, right? It was the older folks who got used to printing their boarding passes and their travel schedules that still wanted it. Even in the course of the pandemic, we've seen it in terms of newspapers. In the first month, a lot of traditional home delivery newspapers stopped. For younger consumers, it was almost seamless, right? They managed out of their Kindles or their digital or their e-papers. Older consumers still like the feel of paper, performing their morning routines. So I think it's really the adaptability that I think is critical, but it's also the ability to quickly make the switch that is important.
Thank you. We have another marketing person on board, Ms. Lilac. Can you give us some insights about how it is across the globe with your B2B experience? Do you think printing and packaging did survive during this lockdown period? What is your view?
Thank you very much for having me. I totally agree with what Lloyd just said about being having to look at new opportunities and understand the consumer and the customer, and also looking inside to use this time to improve processes and to improve the way we are doing business. And I've seen it the same going around the globe with the different customers. I think the pandemic, while it does reduce some of the business, there are some new opportunities that opened up even for the printing industry. Some examples that I've seen with very creative new printing types and new solutions include, for example, printing the faces, the faces of caregivers, doctors, nurses, etc., that are now covering all over themselves with all the protective masks and glasses and goggles, and they lost their smile, they lost their humanity in front of their patients. And to bring it back a little bit, people were printing stickers with their faces, with their smiling faces, for them to put on the robe that they're wearing and to continue have a face in front of their patient. Obviously, this is a digital printing because each person has his own face and his own sticker, and perhaps he needs a few of them because he's replacing the protective dressing, and he needs a new one. So this is one application I came across. Another one that I've seen and printers were developing as a new thing is obviously all the signage around social distancing, put your masks on, stickers with the 6 feet signs for here is where you need to stand in line for the supermarket cashier or whatever the store, and another 6 feet behind that. So new applications around signage. I've also seen people printing new types of congratulations. So we used to go to a birthday party and, hug and kiss, but now we cannot. We need to keep social distancing. And for some people, especially the elderly, that were kind of locked in their houses, all you could do is go and put a sign across the window to tell them that you love them, or put a sign to be with them. Sympathy signs for caregivers as well, etc. So there are new ideas that you can come up even when things are going wrong, and people have developed new applications like that. So I think each print service provider, whether he is in commercial or in signage, in packaging, in displays, they all need to rethink new stuff that they can do within their customer base and sometimes outside their customer base. Obviously, as everybody talked about, going online is a major issue, especially today. It was true already a few years back, but if you haven't jumped on that wagon yet, it's definitely now the time. People are getting used to working from home, so I believe that some of the people that have changed their lifestyle and started working from home and doing everything more online will not go back to changing their lifestyle. Sure, some will go back to going to the office, going back to going shopping live, but some will stay with the online. So going online is a major issue. And I think one topic that was not raised yet by any of the panelists that I've seen happening is local buying. People are becoming way more patriotic about what they're buying. And so you could highlight being local manufacturing. Sometimes people are doing it down to the city, definitely to the region, and definitely to the country. So I think it's something to play with. And if you have more than just the printing done locally, but also, I don't know, any development that you've developed, like using consumables that are local, using maybe paper that is cut locally, or anything to highlight that you are, by doing business, you're giving back to the community, is something that a lot of people care about way more than before, and are willing even to pay a bit extra for that. So I can tell you for sure that here in Israel, a lot of friends and family told me that they are now buying only local beer and local wine, and not imported. And they're willing to pay 10%, 20%, even more for this rather than buy import. So I'm sure that in the printing industry, you can do that as well, and highlight this issue as well.
Mr. Loy, would you like to add to it?
Yeah, I think some great points from Lilac. Just wanted to add one point. I think she made a key point about people buying local. I think that's a reality on two counts. I think one is the pandemic, in a sense, has disrupted global supply chains, right? Lots of companies world over, centralize their manufacturing, let's say in a country, or China or Taiwan or whatever. And suddenly post this entire pandemic disruption with kind of travel embargoes and such like, companies lost. So a lot of global companies are relooking at their supply chains right now, saying there is an advantage to the efficiency of having central manufacturing locations, but there's also lower disruption possibilities when you decentralize manufacturing to an extent, right? So you might lose some of the cost efficiencies, but your disruption far outweighs that. So it adds to the resilience. The second point I think Lilac made, which was brilliant, was the fact that, yes, consumers are beginning to recognize the value of the community. How do I give back to the community? And if it means that I'd rather buy my ice cream from the local cart vendor as opposed to going to a kind of supermarket, so be it. So people are erring on the side of saying, can I support local? And whatever the other national slogans notwithstanding, which is also a factor. So I think these two have become very, very key elements. And I'm glad she brought out both these points. I just wanted to add this little bit. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Now that they have all mentioned the different challenges, and there are a couple of opportunities, but the opportunities appear to be only for innovative value additions. Let's hear from Mr. Sangam Khanna, the ex-military person and ex-fighter pilot person who is now the MD of Komori. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priya ma'am. See, opportunities, as I was, while Tarun was talking, necessity is the mother of invention. I've been tracking a lot of my customers, a lot of my printer friends, a lot of converters, a lot of supply chain people within the industry. I have found that during this time, more opportunities have come up to do business, whether it may be on e-commerce. Now, very, very innovative e-commerce business models have come up, where people are outsourcing only from the local guy, but through the e-commerce. The e-commerce guy, the local guy does not want to go and see you. But he says, you give me my money on the portal. Now, another very good opportunity which I saw, that a lot of the converters, especially on print, what I got to see, that initially in the month of March and April, they had to suffer a lot. And some of them are still continuously suffering. But transformation, the ones who could innovate, the ones who were willing to learn, put their heads down and find a way out, they found some or the other way out. I came across a very, very interesting person who's into coatings, who makes coatings. When, and especially for all the packaging companies, I'll not like to name him because I requested him if I could take his name. So he said, please avoid. Now, recently, some time back, IIT Chennai came up with a mousse coating. Mousse coating is something which it comes in contact with COVID, it destroys it and you can use it up to 60 times. So this fellow flew down to IIT Chennai trying to tie up that I want to develop this coating for an offset packaging solution. Now, what is he talking about? He is talking about food supply chains. He is talking about just about everything he can put that coating on to, whichever the print converter is getting into. So try and understand the volumes this guy is talking about, that if he develops this coating and gives it to most of the packaging converters, and if this box was to come in contact with a COVID, it is COVID free. It's a wow factor. So a lot of these wow factors, opportunities are there to come. And another very innovative guy I came up, he says, why should I be running my press? I don't have so much of business. So let's all of us collect and do business at one place. So they started doing their own gang jobs because the labor ran away. What to do? So innovation is the mother of invention, which I always say. So this is a way forward which I see it's really transforming very well in many, many small areas where people are collectively working, trying to look at new opportunities. I have seen even in the supply chain where a local supplier does not want to go and give it to anybody else. Even the person locally does not want to buy. So the local guy who used to supply to a print converter, and they never used to talk to each other. Today they are talking to each other, they're building relationships, they're building bonds, they're paying each other, they're thriving. So there are good things happening, and I hope this continues. I hope not the corona, but the relationships build on. But it's a very, very good thing happening.
Yeah, very true. Coating, antiseptic coating is something that even we have all tried. The turmeric, curcumin component in turmeric. So we have done a small project on giving a coating to that to make it into a food grade material. So there is a lot of opportunities, but then there is also certification and upskilling from the employees as well as the companies need to do that. So when it comes to color standardization, I have a feeling that there is lack of awareness among the printers and packagers for the need for standardization. Tarunji, do you think India needs some kind of change in that direction? Most printers think why?
Well, certainly. Print standardization has been there for a very, very long time, but as a country, we are way behind in terms of adaptation. And I think primarily this stems from the expense part, which everybody thinks is an expense without understanding or without probably looking at it from a different point of view. Print standardization is more important for me as a producer rather than for my consumer, because I am improving my processes. Because of my improvement of my processes, my equipment utilization increases dramatically, And at the same point of time, I have a much more comfortable customer, because I don't have to kind of worry about all the challenges on a regular basis that all of us face in terms of variation and what needs to be done and how are we going to control colors, things like that.
Equipment utilization increases dramatically.
Print standardization is something that is
I have a much more comfortable customer, because I don't have to kind.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So that's my take on it. It is not an expense as far as the organization is concerned. It is as important as your equipment, to be very honest.
So that said, I would like to know what the supply chain elements, how it can be benefited, or how it can adapt when we are looking at excessive packaging material being now today necessary for e-commerce material. Mr. Lloyd, can you show some light on it? Because when we purchase even a small product over e-commerce, what happens is the packaging is huge for that. So are we doing a lot of waste generation, and can it be minimized? Is there a strategy on those sides?
Great question, Professor. I think it's something that's becoming very real. I think we recognize today that online e-commerce today in India has hit about the 7 to 8% mark of all retail purchases moving online. A lot of it got accelerated, obviously, in the recent past, because digital payments are now becoming more mainstream, and the fact that a lot of e-commerce players in India innovated 5 years ago when they began cash on delivery. I think what has not kept pace, though, is the fact that packaging still tends to be relatively old world, right? A lot of younger consumers or socially conscious consumers are very wary of the fact that even if I order 2 bars of soap, if it comes packed with bubble wrap and then a carton and all the rest of it, I think the wastage is enormous, right? Some part can get settled by smarter logistics, right? There's already talk of kind of merging online and offline, and the fact that mass e-commerce players are going to have fulfillment centers closer home, or indeed going to be doing the fulfillment through the local retail or the Kirana store, as we call him. That would bring down, in a sense, the cost of packaging as a safety measure, since it's being delivered by somebody who's, let's say, a few hundred meters away from your home. They wouldn't treat master cartons and they wouldn't treat all that expensive packaging. I think the second part is really the opportunity for the printing and packaging industry to be more innovative. It's saying, how do we still deliver the product in all its integrity without incurring huge costs, but more importantly, without causing huge environmental damage. And therefore, I believe that the pandemic has kind of accelerated this process of innovation, whether it's e-commerce or whether it's other opportunity. And the other challenge that I have, or I would like to pose to the industry in general, is how does printing and packaging keep up with this entire new requirement of consumers of personalization, right? In the digital world, we know that the algorithms are getting so smarter. They know what we want to watch. They know, what kind of programming we like, what kind of books we do. So there's a lot of data being gathered by consumers because of their online shopping or their browsing habits. To what extent can the printing industry adapt itself to personalization, right? People need a lot more. A few years back, there's a very well-known story about Coke doing designer labels, right? Where you could send, let's say, a bottle of Coca-Cola to your best friend with his name or with a special message, right? To what extent can printing therefore start customizing, personalizing almost to an individual level, right? And what is that speed of response, right? Today in this digital generation, young consumers want things real time. How soon can we make this? This is not about large batch sizes. This is not about taking a fresh print run and delivering something 3 months from now. The consumer has this idea of sending something nice on a chocolate bar to his girlfriend at 3 o'clock. Can it be delivered to her by 6 p.m.? I think these are the challenges that the industry has to recognize and use this opportunity to innovate and see if it can make things better.
Very true. One of the answers to that is the print on demand concept. So only when the product is required, the product is printed. This will eliminate the need for storage, warehouses, and even much of the other expenditure that is involved in material procurement to storage and other things. So when we talk about print on demand, 3D printing is one thing that comes into the mind. Be it a prototype or even components in the industry which has to be replaced, 3D printing is the solution that people are talking about. At least in the research area from my perspective, whether it has become a reality or not is another issue. So if printers are to take up 3D printing as an alternate business, now that a few of their businesses are not doing well, Laila, can you tell us whether it would be a good option for printers to jump into 3D printing as a business?
So I think people have to understand that 3D printing is a major discipline. It's not one type of technology. There is a huge amount of technologies in 3D printing, and you cannot compare between different technologies and different materials. So someone printing a biomaterial, or somebody printing food, or somebody printing plastic, and another one printing metal or ceramic. All these materials are true materials that people are printing with in 3D. You cannot compare them. So when someone thinks about going into 3D printing, because it is a future or already happening thing, I think the best way to start is by understanding who are his customers, his current customers. What kind of services and who are the customers and what are the needs that they might have. Not look outside for a new business, but look inside with the current customers that he has, what kind of upsell he could do with 3D printing. So if somebody, for example, is very deep into the business of printing wedding invitations and birthday cards and stuff like that, then maybe he would it would be right for him to go into 3D printing with a smaller 3D printer that prints in polymers, in plastics, and start offering personalized napkin holders for that same wedding. Or I don't know, doing a vase for that wedding or something like that. Someone else who is maybe doing already digital printing in large format for signage might want to go into 3D printing that is appropriate for that. Things like a Massivit 3D, where you could print huge displays and huge elements that go either on buses, point of purchase displays, billboards, etc. Each one of the print service providers needs to evaluate, first of all, the customers that he has and the possible needs that they might have in 3D, and only then search for the right 3D printing solution and technology that will serve those needs, rather than start from the technology. It's a major change for a business to go 3D. They do have a lot of knowledge, because all print service providers, especially those who are already digital, they know how to handle files. They know what it means to have a workflow. They understand pre-press and post-press. So they understand that in 3D printing, a lot of the concepts are similar. You do need to prepare the file. You need to prepare the printing. You need to find the right way to put the file on the table for printing. There's a lot of finishing work in 3D printing, just like in the 2D printing, that you have to cut, crease, fold, and things like that. So also in 3D printing, there is a lot of post processes after the manufacturing of the part. There is support removal, there is finishing, smoothing, all kind of, depends on what you're doing and what the technology and which the material. So a lot of the concepts are the same. Nevertheless, there is still a big gap of knowledge, and one needs to understand that it's not an easy process to move from 2D to 3D, but it is a feasible process. But it's most important to start it only if you have established a need within your customers.
Thank you. Very true. So if a business person has an aptitude towards 3D printing, and if he can upskill himself with a graceful change, I think he can change over. Very true. So what you say appears to have a lot of new learning that everybody needs to do. So self-learning, or even using a trainer, there needs to be a lot of training. Sangamji, can you give us some information about how the Japanese, you're in a Japanese company, how the Japanese are upskilling, training your employees so that they are up to date? Is there a very systematic procedure from which we can have some lessons learned?
See, I haven't been to Japan during this time. I must be very honest. But I can tell you what is going on. And some of the very, very survival things are happening today. So one of the most important things is hustle versus agility. So this hustle versus agility is something which not pushing the panic button, but keeping yourself calm and composed, wait for your opportunity. That's a very Japanese way. If you have a storm, wait for the storm to pass, everything be okay, because you must understand this is not your time. So understanding and looking at possibilities of what is in your control. So doing things which are in your control is a very, very Japanese way of handling. Something which is not in your control, just leave it. Do not try and venture out into rough weather. That's the Komori way, or the Japanese way. Most Japanese would do it. And the important thing is to remember that the fundamentals of the supply chain or the constraints must be respected, and especially when it comes to the Indian context, which we must also learn from the Japanese, that going at the supply chain, as Lloyd also put it up very, very rightly, that depending on the supply chain is very, very important. So the more local we go, the better it is. So stay calm, stay focused, be patient and empathetic, because what is changing, we do not know that what is how the situation is going to really unfold to the next level. So one thing we must address, that keeping our ears to the ground as we see the COVID numbers rapidly unfolding. We do not know which way this is going to go by the time it ends, because everything which has started has to end somewhere. So at what point it is going to end? So conserving our energies, conserving ourselves, that is very, very important. And learning from our experiences, what we in Komori have done is that we have requested all our staff to pick up more than the talent which they have, because the same set of work may not exist after the COVID. So how to judge that hard work is also going to become a very, very difficult situation. As Lloyd said, working out of home is a new normal. So working out of home, which is going to be a new normal, so how are you going to define that who's a hardworking guy and who's not? So the efforts to replace the outcomes will also have to be redefined by different parameters. So goal settings are going to be a different, very, very different challenge, because managing a remote goal and managing remote teams is going to be another very, very big challenge. So fixed roles will switch to swinging roles. This is what we feel is going to be a part of most corporate organizations, that fixed roles will switch to swinging roles. As you should be in a position to do multiple roles within the same parameters. So this is, have I answered your question, Priya?
Yeah, almost. So it's more like saying whether you work at home or work from the campus, you need to self-learn. You should have the maturity or responsibility of understanding how to adapt to the situation. This is very true from my side also, because we are learning from home, teaching from home. That's another work from home. So whether the student is listening to us or not, whether she is taking down the notes and responding and answering, that also is a big challenge for us. But then what happens is the ball is in the student's court. They have to self-learn. It is their responsibility, and they have to skim through this entire period. We have given them opportunities to look into MOOC courses, massive open online courses, where it is a self-paced courses are available, and they have to complete the certification as well, which means that we are preparing students to face any kind of situation in future. So that's one thing that academic institutions are doing as well. We'll move to the next topic. What about the worker psychology, employee psychology? How have you been able to maintain their spirits during the lockdown period, maybe in terms of finance or the uncertainty of the future? Tarunji, can you and Sangamji give some information about that?
Let me go on this first. This has been a very, very big challenge, because at Komori, cutting down salaries was an option which we had, which we restrained to as long as possible. Of course, once the finances go tight, then everything is not so good. So the fear factor within the employees is much bigger that I'm going to get sacked. So Komori being a very, very ethical company, they say till the time we can survive, we survive. But what we have seen across the board, we've seen massive layoffs, huge salary cuts. We've seen all kinds of things happening where even some of the oldest employees have been shown the way or have gone on a very, very bad situation. So keeping the employees motivated, what we did was that we ensured that we put them through vigorous trainings, because sitting at home, we knew that they couldn't go anywhere. So we used to take on in whatever the person was and whatever his, even if he's an administrative guy, train that guy. So that training became a part and parcel. So we got to have more team building, more aggressive working with each other. We could nurture our data, collect our data, work together, analyze data, something which we wanted to do for so many years we couldn't do. So many good things have happened. Yeah, employee frustration, because he is used to going out and getting away from his wife and kids not shouting at him and somebody not jumping on his shoulder. He is not used to that. So that is something which is a new normal he has to behave. So there are many good things and bad things which come with every new change. So Tarun, you go now.
Pankaj sir, you're not audible.
Yeah, Pankaj.
Meanwhile, Tarun can continue.
So to sum it up, like Lloyd sir said, that pandemic has accelerated a lot of things. Yes, it has. It has changed everything. It, like you said, that teams need to be more responsible. Certainly, people have to be more
Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
And eventually quality will win, to sum it up.
So we have several questions. So I do not know why I was not audible. I was not using my hands-free. I would actually like to sum up because we don't have too much of time, few questions into one, and taking a cue from what Sangam was talking about in the last. The previous session was a very interesting session on how consumer consumption has changed in the last 6 months. And it was a session from Mr. Ramakrishnan, who is the managing director for Kantar, which I think some of you may be aware. They do basically household consumption tracking in India, and it was a very, very interesting session. I would welcome you to go into that, which will give you a lot of ideas about how the packaging industry which will move around, keeping these trends in place. Taking that session and the last session of last part of Sangam's, what is a trend which is happening in this industry is that some of the unorganized sector, it is also happening in the consumer packaged goods. They were the first one to suffer because consumers started working with brands, packaged goods, because from a hygiene safety factor. And when you mentioned about Komori being Komori, larger organizations, they were somehow trying to keep the ethical front and retain employees. While we saw, and it happened to a large extent in the printing industry, a lot of migration, a lot of layoffs happening in the smaller segments. Do you believe, and then there was a session today from Mr. Dayakar Reddy, where he was talking about environmental phase, where Indian companies are very inefficient in managing their workflows because they're not utilizing their wasted products for recycling. So there will be a lot of emphasis going ahead on cutting down cost for survival. Do you think that this will open up more international companies to come to India? I'm talking about print and packaging companies, because there will be voids.
Absolutely. In the last 3 months, I have had various consultants are calling me up to ask for M&As in India, especially with packaging companies. Because they want to know, okay, how's this company doing? They do these referral checks. So, of course, I know of at least 3 such cases which are happening and should go through all 3.
Okay. The point again on M&A. We started a company and we got merged with another. This is the trend which is not there in the printing industry in India. There's too much of excess capacity, right? At the same time, at least I do not know too much of the packaging industry, but I know the commercial print industry and the wide format industry. There is no consolidation of the industry. And this is typically, hampering innovation, hampering, I would say profit generation, because everyone is trying to undercut each other. Where is this going to? Do you think now, I'm not talking about international companies acquiring, do you think there will be a trend of mergers and acquisitions or let's say not acquisition, mergers to bring synergies in this industry? Because I believe it's no brainer that it needs to be done.
It has already started happening. You have to understand, Pankaj, you have to travel around India. If you see their collaborations, mergers, which are most popular in India, as an example, you go to any part of Gujarat. Any part of Gujarat, you will find more mergers and acquisitions where they are being brainstormed even pre-COVID times. I have seen when we used to supply an equipment to our printing press, which costs maybe whatever that amount is, and I come across a 20-year-old kid coming and say, okay, 5 crore worth of an equipment I'm willing to buy. I said, go call your daddy. So he says, I'm willing to buy, I'm going to give you the check. So when you ask him, where did you get that money from? The 19-year-old kid, he says, I have 10 of my friends putting in 50 each. So what happens is that there is already a collaboration going on. At the lower level, a 19-year-old kid is doing it. So there is a community trust which is already there in that. But if we see on a slightly larger scale, again the Gujaratis and the Marwaris have taken a headway. We have seen these kind of partnerships work between Gujarat and Mumbai. We've seen a lot of these happening within the communities. But
so to cut a long story short, because of shortage of time, so it's basically you believe that mergers are already happening and it will continue.
Unorganized.
Great. Lloyd, I have an interesting question for you. You may be aware or you may not be aware because you're not directly associated with the the print and packaging industry. But some of the others may be knowing, even Lilak may be knowing. A couple of years back, there was a very interesting merger which took place. This was a company called Quad Graphics, right, which is a world's #2 on a big printing press like a Donnelly Group. They acquired Periscope, which is the world's largest privately held advertising agency. Okay, and that trend started with two more other ones, which was the printing industry today or packaging industry today is at the in the supply chain. They are in one area where they're not controlling the input section. They may have gone into a little bit of design or something, but not in the real communication space. While advertising, being part of an advertising agency, we always struggle that we do not control the production part because that's where the real money is. Now, this merger has opened up a very new dynamics. Now, there are a lot of big corporate brands, large FMCG brands, who work with a lot of suppliers from both the sides, right? They're working with production people and they're working with creative strategic agencies. What will a brand like to work with? A single house providing an end-to-end solution with a lot of in-house expertise, or they would like to go to specialists?
Great question, Pankaj. And just briefly referring to the last part of the question, I think part of change will also apply in terms of the disruption that's happening, right? So to the point Sangam and you were making previously, printing as a service may now evolve. People are suddenly realizing that there is excess capacity. One way is mergers and acquisitions. But what we see a lot in the startup ecosystem is thanks to external funders like VC firms, they're able to push two companies roughly in similar spaces together to create, let's say, a slightly more robust and a slightly more viable operation, right? So that kind of pushes the whole M&A business. Separately, I think it's also the opportunity of using it as a service. But more specifically to the point you made, I think a lot of adjacent industries are now beginning to look at synergies. You referred to the previous panel where someone from Kantar had spoken. Now, Kantar was fundamentally a market research company. Last year, one of the world's top 3 consulting companies, Bain & Company, acquired Kantar. And their belief is that since we are providing a consolidated consulting solution to our clients, and a lot of the consulting actually is dependent on good ground research, why don't we go out and acquire a research company? So to that point, I think it's a matter of time when the large advertising or marketing services conglomerates, the Group M's and the Publicis of the world, will start looking at the entire space, saying, I'm providing marketing services, which is creative, which is media buying, which is, whatever. Why should I leave production out of the gamut, right? And that might make sense. So I do see this trend accelerating. I think it's a matter of time before a lot of, let's say the large marketing services or advertising conglomerates start beginning to look at the adjacency of printing as a service and slowly put it into its fold. So I think directionally we are, embarking on that space. And I would say in the next couple of years, one would see a lot of accelerated activity here.
Excellent. I wish we had some more time. We are actually getting into a space which is getting very exciting. But unfortunately, I don't have that luxury. We have another session, very interesting session. If you would like, you can join in. Mr. John Gleason is logging in from Chicago all the way. So I need to get ready for that. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It was a wonderful session. And I'm sure really enjoyed participating, sharing some of the questions from the crowd. And I got a message from Lloyd saying that Okay, no, that was previously. I'm definitely heard right now. So thank you very much, and I really look forward to meeting you, engaging with you on similar forums as we go ahead into the year. And really thanks from everyone's from the bottom of my heart, and especially Professor. It was wonderful for you to take the initiative, put the panel together. It was a wonderful session. Thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you very much for having
Thank
us.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.